one of the key components of Donald Trump's second term immigration crackdown, or whatever he calls it, has been courthouse arrest, showing up to the sacred halls of our courthouses and grabbing people and deporting them. Well, it turns out that he can't do that. A federal judge has ruled that New York's Protect Our Courts Act, which specifically prohibits this type of behavior, coming into courthouses and arresting people on immigration violations or immigration charges in an effort to try to deport them, is not allowed. And the Trump DOJ tried to strike down that law, and a federal judge has ruled that he cannot strike down that law. We're unpacking that and talking about what led to this and some of the thinking and the reasoning behind that opinion on this new installment of Civil Action on the Legal AF Network. I'm Shant Karnikian. That's Brian Kabateck over there, my sidekick, or my law partner.
Not your sidekick.
Okay, fine. My law partner. We are two lawyers based out of California, but covering cases and handling cases all over the country. Brian, where do we dive into this issue?
I think it's safe to say that November, and we're in the second half of November right now, November is turning out to be a very, very bad month for Trump and for the Trump administration. So here's another loss. This time, the state of New York in 2020 enacted a law during the first Trump administration that said that ICE officials, specifically ICE officials, can't come into courthouses and they can't arrest people based on some kind of a civil violation. Remember, most people who enter this country illegally, it's a civil violation. It's not a criminal violation. It's not like nor is it like somebody committed a crime, murdered.
But illegal is illegal, Brian. Isn't that the talking point?
Well, that's the problem. People say that, and I keep reminding them it's a civil violation. It's not a criminal violation. At any rate, distinguishing most people who are in this country illegally are not here and did not commit a crime. They're just here, illegally, however you want to look at it. I guess what's frustrating about this is that the thought that federal agents would enter our state courthouses seems so offensive. It seemed offensive enough to the people of New York, right?
Yeah, that they passed a law prohibiting it. I mean, and it is offensive from a lawyer's perspective. I used the phrase, sacred halls, or, it is a key component of our democracy, right? Courthouse, where justice takes place. You want it to be a safe place. You don't want people being arrested or snatched up on bullshit warrantless civil immigration charges.
Right.
So it is important to protect people in that area because this isn't about like, oh, we're looking to protect illegal aliens or something like that. No, this is about making sure that the place where people show up to access justice, where people show up to enforce their rights, the courthouse, American courthouses, you want to make sure they're a safe place and people aren't discouraged from participating in that process.
And this is, now we'll go to law school for a second. This is very important. Article 6 of the Constitution talks about the separation of state and federal. The 10th Amendment we don't talk about very often, even as lawyers, we don't talk about very often until Trump became president, basically says that the states have certain of their own rights. And historically, this was incredibly important to getting the various states to sign on to the Constitution and ultimately to the amendments, because what it did was it said states still have their own rights. The federal government just can't come into state property and do something. The state has its own rights. And that's what a lot of this decision is based on. By the way, Shant, this isn't the first decision to uphold sanctuary status for courthouses and state buildings. The same ruling came down in July, I believe, in Illinois. So this is not, and that has not been reversed. This is now the second time it's happened. So, what can and what can't immigration ICE officers do in courthouses, Sean?
Well, they can still, even under this law, they can still make arrests with a judicial warrant signed by a judge. They can arrest outside of like a certain zone. I think it's like a 200-yard zone outside. This law basically just prevents like ambush type of arrests where it's like they suspect that someone has questionable immigration status and they just come up to them, no warrant or anything, and say, give us your papers or we're going to grab you, based on the language someone's speaking or how they look, the color of their skin. That's what it prevents. But they can still make arrests with judicial warrants, real warrants. So it's not like this is contrary to, law and order. It doesn't undermine the idea of being able to still have law enforcement do what they need to do, or our immigration system do what it needs to do, right?
And I think one of the things that's important to understand about this is, look, I don't think anybody would sit here with a brain and say that if somebody was, wanted for murder and you knew that they were in a courthouse or you knew that they were in a public building someplace, that the federal government couldn't get a warrant signed by a judge. And a lot of these warrant arrests by the immigration, by ICE, are not being made with a judicial warrant. They're made by an administrative warrant, which is basically just a piece of paper that says, go pick up Shant Karnikian, something like that. Although I don't know any paper like that exists, Shant, so don't worry.
Thank you. Yeah. You're confirming that. Yeah.
And what it then goes on to do, actually, this law goes on to say that the whoever violates this can be fined up to $10,000 per incident. So we could start seeing, cases going after federal officers and the federal government for violating this.
Right. And then now there's like statutory penalties associated with that. So, yeah.
Right. And I think it's really important for people to understand that, us as lawyers, we need people to be witnesses and come to courthouses. We need people to feel that the courthouse is a place that they can come and be on equal footing with everybody else. And if the federal government had its way and could install ICE officers in our courthouses, anytime for example, someone who appears Latino or speaks with an accent comes in and they sit there and they start saying, I want your papers. Well, guess who isn't going to come to court anymore?
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, look, we represent people of many different backgrounds, and without even commenting on their immigration status or anything like that, many of them would be concerned about this, especially given what we've seen out there in that's been happening under the Trump administration. Many of them would be reluctant to pursue claims under the law because they know, I might have to one day go to court for my trial. I might have to go to court with my lawyer for a hearing. And look what it does. It discourages people from participating in the civil justice process. And this is the final stop for someone seeking justice and adjudicating their disputes. And like you said, even witnesses, members of the public, it would discourage participation in the court system in our country, closing the courthouse doors basically on a large portion of the population. I'm not talking about people that are undocumented. I'm talking about people that are American citizens, but happen to fit the mold for someone who would get questioned by Trump ICE agents. Those people would be scared, and I don't blame them either. So you need laws like this to ensure participation in the system.
And I think briefly, if we discuss the broader topic of the sanctuary cities, sanctuary states, sanctuary rules like this one, saying this is a sanctuary rule, the mistake that people make is that, especially on the right, they try to say like, you're harboring these people. No, there's a difference between harboring and just not cooperating. Yeah. And for example, most of these rules are states don't have to turn over names. States don't have to, you can't enlist the Los Angeles Police Department to help you go find illegal immigrants and lock them up. Yeah. It isn't we're going to stand in your way of legally enforcing federal law, which means, you want to know, that there's a guy who committed murder and he's at a particular address in your city. No one's going to stand there and prevent you from exercising your rights under federal law. But what we're not going to do is welcome you into our courthouses, tell you that you can command our police officers to do things. And that's just simply what this means. So, this is a great ruling. And I guess my last comment on this is how I started, which is November is shaping up to be a very bad month for the Trump administration. The elections, the Epstein issues, the rulings that they're getting in various courts all over the place. This is not turning it. Now we're starting to see what, should be happening, frankly, what should happen a while ago, but the chickens are coming home to roost, Shant.
Yeah. I'll end with what I started with, which is this is a victory for access to courts, access to justice, protection of due process, and people being able to participate in the civil justice system. And it restores basic protections. And again, the courts are here to save the day and prevent autocrats like Trump from trying to do what they've been doing. So, it's the end of the road, and we're seeing that the courts are going to stop this from happening. So thanks for tuning in. Stay tuned. If there's any developments on this, we'll certainly cover it. I'm Shant Karnikian. That's Brian Kabateck. This has been another installment of Civil Action on the Legal AF Network. Again, a reminder, if you like this content, Support us by subscribing, sharing it with whoever you think might find it informative or interesting. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you on the next one.
Can't get your fill of Legal AF? Me neither. That's why we formed the Legal AF Substack. Every time we mention something in a hot take, whether it's a court filing or a oral argument, come over to the Substack. You'll find the court filing and the oral argument there, including a daily roundup that I do called, wait for it, Morning AF. What else? All the other contributors from Legal AF are there as well. We got some new reporting. We got interviews. We got ad-free versions of the podcast and hot takes. Where? Legal AF on Substack. Come over now to free subscribe.